I was 15 competing against women who were twice my age. So that was something that was really hard for me to get over that age gap and building confidence to know that I was just as capable at winning a race, even though I was half their age, right? So the confidence was a huge thing I needed. Learning how to be mindful in the moments of the race. So being able to calm down, being able to perform well under immense pressure from sponsors, from family, from yourself. Honestly, most of the pressure came from within.
Welcome back to AST's It's All Mental podcast. I'm your host, Eduardo Sicilia, and we have another special guest today. But before that, as you guys know, our founder, Jim Madrid, is going to give us a little bit of an intro to how they came along on the program. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks, Eddie. Your guest today is Shae Foudy. And Shae, again, is one of our coaches that I met when she was in grade school. Her dad and mother were friends of ours. And then I coached her little brother, Cole, in soccer. Her dad was my assistant coach, and Shae was always on the sideline, watching and listening and so on. And then she became and got really interested. Her father was a big time surfer. Same with her mother. Loves the ocean too. And Shae got involved in stand up paddleboarding, and at a very young age. And then she just kind of grew into it and really started getting into competitive stand up paddleboarding. And a lot of people, wow, that's a sport. Yeah, it is. And if you just before you watch this interview, or even after the interview that you're going to do with Shae, if you Google or YouTube anything about Shae Foudy, you will see how rigorous, the amount of energy and the physical ability that you have to have. Can you imagine standing up on that board and you're fighting currents in the ocean, waves, and so on, in rivers, wind? She's traveled all over the world. And 2 years ago, this is an interesting thing. It was a kind of a pivotal time in her life where she really didn't know. She got injured. She ripped some muscles under her rib cage. She really didn't know whether or not she wanted to continue with it. And sat down with her one day and I said, you need to go away and you need to really think about whether or not you want to continue to do this or not. And about 2 days later, she called me up. She goes, can we meet? So we met again. I said, what? And she said, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I'm committed. And that year, of competition, she became a world champion. And when she did, it was in England and in London. And she can tell you the rest of the story. But ask her about it, because she beat every men and women in that final competition to become world champion. So she's extra special. She's like a daughter to me. She is absolutely a wonderful young lady.
So I love the fact that you just said that, because if you guys have noticed on the past episodes, you've seen glimpses of it and on each intro, but you have such a personal connection with each one of us, each one of the AST members. And obviously, we're going to hear about her side of the story and how she met you. But I just love that. I really like the fact that you have been part of our personal lives and care about our results outside of the field or outside of whatever competition they are in, but care about the person.
Yeah, and how can you not? And like yourself, Eddie, and I, you and I, well, we've known each other a little over a year now. I think it's been about a year, and I met you through your father, and we hit it off right away. All you were going to do is interview me, remember?
Right.
And look what it's turned into, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just those kind of people, and Eddie, you know that because you've got some good friends that you just want to be around. And then when they are attracted to, me personally too, and they're friends. They don't work for me. They don't work for AST. They work with AST like you do, You work with AST. And I think if more leaders and coaches could understand that concept, how much more they can get out of, the potential of the individuals on their team. It's extraordinary. This young lady, she is the epitome of extraordinary.
If you guys wanted a golden nugget right there it is. Well, on that note, I hope you guys enjoy the interview. So let's hit to it. Well, with that being said, we're pretty excited to have Shae Foudy with us. Jim already gave us a little bit of an introduction about you and your life and how you got together with AST. But we're pretty pleased to have you here and for this interview.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on and talk about AST's impact in my life as well as gym.
Of course. Well, first and foremost, what do you do? Who's Shae Foudy?
So, well, hi, my name is Shae. I say was because of COVID, I'm not really competing anymore, but I am / was a professional stand-up paddleboarder. I won a world title in 2019. I was competing for over 7 years, mostly when I was younger. Pretty much stopped about 20 when COVID hit. But I'm currently going to school. I'm studying dietetics. My end goal is to become a registered dietetic nutritionist. And I live in Hawaii. I live on the island of Oahu. I'm studying at University of Hawaii at Manoa. So that's kind of fun. And I'm also a part-time coach at AST. I've been coaching for many years. I love working with younger women who, are kind of in the same boat I was, because I was competing professionally at a young age. So I understand the pressures and, the requirements you need to have and do in order to be successful in your given sport. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, first and foremost, congrats on everything that you have accomplished so far. Second, of course, I'm so jealous of you living in Hawaii. I want to visit. I want to visit Hawaii soon.
Awesome.
So you explained a little bit about what you did growing up. And now, you're a coach. By the way, all of you guys who are watching, you can find out a little bit more about what Shae does in our program in the website. I'll leave the link over here. So tell us, what got you into coaching? Why do you want to share that knowledge?
Yeah, so Jim was actually my coach. I've known him since I was like 5 years old, because his kids were closely aged as with me and my younger brother, and he was a coach for my brother's soccer team, blah blah blah. He was just always like family to me since I was young.
Okay.
And I started professionally competing in my sport when I was about 14 years old. And Jim, noticed I was getting better. He saw my progress and he was like, my parents also talked to him like, Shae's been struggling with a couple things in terms of her mental game. And I knew nothing. I was 14, 15, but I knew that all of a sudden I was getting anxious. All of a sudden I was getting mind blocks with some races. I was losing not because of my physical capabilities, but because of mental challenges I was having. So Jim really became super influential, honestly, in a lot of my successes, because he created a foundation of just mental strength for me. I started to understand the importance behind having a vision, behind setting a long-term goal for yourself, why it's important to do envisioning work, why it's important to meditate, being mindful. Like, I could literally go on for hours about the list of things of what he brought to my attention of what was important. And so after feeling and learning those things for myself, how I literally won a world title because of the help he gave me, was when I started to become so passionate about the same work. And that kind of started my journey of becoming a coach. I did a couple just like talks in schools about what it means to be just confident and having a vision for your life. And then it kind of crossed over to when I started coaching. And I think I'm just specifically very passionate working with younger women like myself when I was in their position. And I think that's how I became a coach, was because of Jim's impact on my life and how I realized firsthand how impactful it is when you practice these things and you practice the fundamentals and the program. It literally changes your life. So that's why I became so rooted in wanting to also do the same work with other clients like myself.
Of course. I mean, I can only imagine being 14 years old and being a professional player. I'm sure you went through a lot of the challenges that normal people or student athletes don't go through at that age. What are some of the challenges that you faced before working with AST?
So I would say the big things that I was struggling with. I was 15 competing against women who were twice my age. So that was something that was really hard for me to get over, that age gap, and building confidence to know that I was just as capable at winning a race even though I was half their age, right? So the confidence was the huge thing I needed. Learning how to be mindful in the moments of the race. So being able to calm down, being able to perform well under immense pressure from sponsors, from family, from yourself. Honestly, most of the pressure came from within.
Mm-hmm.
So gym and the program really taught me how to decipher between those things. So confidence, being grounded. I think I really had a huge problem with setting goals and why that even mattered. So that was another big thing that he helped me with. And just really like defining why I wanted to even be practicing my sport. So like understanding the passion behind it and why I'm doing it in the first place. Those were all things that I attained from working with Jim and doing the program.
Really interesting. I think that's one of the main characteristics of all the great ones, right? They have a high standard for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I think all of us, we channel that in different ways. What was the way that you would challenge yourself to accomplish those high standards, those high goals?
I think holding yourself accountable and really just having good practice. I think these things that we learn in the program are simple in grand scheme of things, right? Being able to meditate, setting goals for yourself. You already know what you want to do, but physically writing them down. I think when you make these practices a routine is what really is impactful. So that's, I think, a huge separation factor. If you have the self-discipline to do it and the actual, practice of doing it every day, I think that is very impactful in the long run.
Of course. Walk me through one of your daily routine days that you would go through for preparation for a competition.
I would say the night before and leading up. Honestly, you have to, when you're in season, I think it's really a daily practice, but specifically before competition, the night before, I would always be doing meditation work. So just listening to my breath or meditating on mantras or meditating and also doing envisioning work, sitting down in my room in the dark for at least 5 minutes, taking myself through what my race is going to look like that next day. So the buoys I'm going to hit perfectly as I'm turning and the start, me being first to the line, like all these little things I would practice envisioning work with. Of course, there were a lot of physical aspects that were taken into account, making sure I was properly hydrated, my nutrition was right. But I think what really set me apart, because all the other athletes were training at a high level, all the other athletes were making sure their nutrition right, but not everyone was really working on their mental game. So I think that was the largest influencing factor when it came to being prepared for my competitions the next day.
Visualization.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's this new belief, or maybe not new, but we have implemented this way more nowadays, where we don't have to be well-rounded athletes, individuals, leaders, but we have to use our strengths and use them in our best capacities. In my case, it was totally the opposite. I'm a huge competitor when it comes to, I needed to think about, hey, they're saying that I won't be able to do this, or they're saying that I won't be able to win this, to go and push me, to that extra level, to that next level. So for you, it was more like find a rhythm and be more calm, or how did that work for you before competitions?
Yeah, honestly, it was just being grounded within myself. And like something that I really struggled with was overthinking everything the night before and getting in my head. Yeah, I was too in my head about things. Like I would overthink how something was going to go to the point where once I was actually racing, my mind would go down a negative rabbit hole, or like my self-talk would go so bad, so south. So for me, it was the night before just making sure I was calm and making sure that the next day was just focusing on the moments of my sport. So not the actual outcome, but just every moment I was in, my stroke, the turn I had to do next, the segment of my race I had to do next. I was just focusing on those aspects. And how I helped myself was the night before. I was just staying present in the moment and working on my visualization.
Question. So as a football player, obviously our plays are way shorter, right? It's just a couple of seconds. So you think about what you're going to do a couple seconds before, and then you react. I know there's thinking involved into it, but it's more reaction than a strategy in the moment of the play. when it comes to running, I know it's different. You have a little bit more time to think. What would you think during those races?
Honestly, I would try to not think,
Okay.
because that was where I was messing myself up. I think mostly like my mind would just go back if there was any, for example, I mess up, I fell on a turn or something happened, I would just focus in the very moment and say, I can make this up. Like, I'm resilient. I'm going to make this up. It was always just dealing with what was happening in the moment and trying not to think too much about the whole race, but in the very moments of things. I hope that makes sense. I think mostly for me, I needed to just focus on the task at hand instead of like the end game scenario of what I was doing. Because when I started thinking about winning, even a positive thing, or losing a negative thing, I would get so focused on that, I forgot about what I was doing in the moment. And then if you're not thinking about what you're doing in the moment, whatever possibility of the future is going to get away from you because you're not focusing on that very task at hand, which you could be making better or worse by doing that. So it was just focusing on the moments and not too much ahead for me.
So if a young athlete is watching this and they might be saying, well, she's already a winner, she has accomplished all of this. In turn, what would you say to them? How can they build that self-confidence to get to those high achieving moments and being successful at whatever they do?
I think that's an awesome question. Honestly, to a younger individual who hasn't yet accomplished their big goals, I would say you have to start somewhere. When I was 14, I had a big goal of winning a world title, and I didn't accomplish that goal for 5 years. So I think you need to make a vision for yourself. Okay. What is your big goal? What is it that you want? Your biggest want. And I'm saying sports related because we're talking about sports in this situation. Right. It could be anything. It could be a job. It could be an academical, whatever it is. Okay. What's that big vision? What's your biggest goal you can think of? Okay. And then picture, what are the things you need to do yearly? What are the things you need to do monthly, weekly, daily? Break it down. Okay. Those things, the small accomplishments that you begin to achieve, add up. You don't just make that big vision for yourself in a month. It's hitting the smaller goals, but you first need to see what it is that you want to achieve. Like, what makes you excited? What is that? And I think you award yourself. You really have to reward yourself when you do make the little achievements, because it's a process and it takes grit. It takes determination. It takes constantly picking yourself up when things don't go your way, because that is life. It's not going to go your way. That's why people don't do hard things sometimes, because it's hard. Yeah, that's what I would say. Just know that you have to start somewhere.
I couldn't agree more. Just taking those little wins and putting them on your back, on your belt of experience, that leads to you feeling more comfortable with yourself, and that takes you to the next step and winning something else. I think along the lines of what you mentioned, also motivation, right? Motivation, if I play or display a motivational video for someone, they might get hyped up and I want to go out there and run and win a national championship, right? But when the tides get hard and when the situation is not a favorable one for you, that's when passion comes into play, right? Because you have to go through the motions even when it's hard.
Right.
That's when your why comes into play. Right. What was your why? What pushed you to go through those tough moments?
I think my reason, my why, my purpose was rooted in my vision. Like, that's what honestly, my student I currently have right now, we're defining a why for her, her vision. What's her reason? Why do you want to go to your practices every day? Mm-hmm. Why do you play these games? Why, for me, why was I traveling across the world to do these races? Why would I get up at 5 a.m. every single day? Mm-hmm. It was because I wanted to be ranked #1 in the world for female stand-up paddlers. I wanted to win a world title. I wanted to do these things, and I felt because of my envisioning work I did before, I already felt what it was going to be like to win that. And that feeling that I wanted to have for like reaching that real life goal was what would drive me. Not only that, not even having just my vision, it was the fact that I loved what I was doing. So the passion of what I was doing was also there.
So what
go ahead.
exactly did you love? Was it like the recognition, or was it winning against others, or was it just proving to yourself that you were good enough? What was the thing that drove you there?
I would say the biggest drive wasn't proving to anyone anything. It was just like the 15-year-old girl version. What am I saying? I'm still a girl. The 15-year-old version of myself saw that for me. And I just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to prove to the 15-year-old version of myself, like, you wanted to do this. You set this goal 5 years ago. I wanted to prove I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was all internal. It wasn't for anyone else but myself. And I think that is such an important takeaway for anything in life. If you're doing something for somebody else, it's never going to make you happy. It may make you happy for a short moment of validation, but do things because you want to accomplish them. For me, I wanted to do that because I was a 15-year-old girl who saw myself doing that. I wanted to prove to myself, like, if you set a goal, accomplish it, do it, even if it's hard. That was my reason.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something about finding your student, determining her vision, her why. What part of you as an athlete is helping you become a better coach? And what has being a coach brought to the table? Like, what is the nuance of being a coach mentally wise for you?
So I think my sport taught me these. I feel like I was in such an amazing position. And I say the pressure of what I was doing was honestly a privilege. Jim would say that the pressure is a privilege because I was in a unique situation at a young age. And I honestly believe, when things just happen in life and you're in the right place at the right time, I think a lot of it and my success was I was in the right place at the right time. So I feel an immense sense of not pressure, but desire and want to spread the things that I was taught because of the unique place I was at a given time, to share that with other individuals who are in that situation. And I think being a coach has given me, oh my gosh, like it's the best feeling because I can share the things that I learned and they can learn from those things. So like I won a world title. I won a lot of races. I did these things, blah, blah, blah. But that happened. That's the past. I can continue to keep lessons I've learned alive. I can continue to share. I don't like using the word failures, but honestly, failures I experienced and turn them into lessons and share those lessons. Like experiencing the things that made my life so impactful, not just as an athlete, but as a student and person with other younger women or men, anyone in those positions. I think it's a beautiful thing. If you've learned from things in your life, you should share those things, pass them on to another person that can benefit.
What have you learned on this new venture for you?
I'd say after becoming a coach, I've learned that no matter how old you are or whatever sport you're in, you're going to have the same issues that arise. And I think that the lessons, like what I'm teaching, also refreshes me of like the tasks I can be teaching myself. So I'm teaching meditation. I go, wow, okay, I see how this is so impactful for them. It's like a reminder how impactful that can be for myself. And like the fundamentals I go through with them, I think about my own experiences and it honestly fires me up again talking about it. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, these are amazing things. Like I want to continue doing this even if I'm not competing at the moment. So yeah, it's constantly just growing for me too as I teach them.
I share that feeling. I think that when you're capable of teaching something, plus you transmit that passion through your lessons, that just fires you and helps you up just as much.
Yes.
a couple of days ago, I was actually having that conversation. You mentioned being at the right place at the right moment. And sometimes that happens to a lot of us. The only difference is there are people who are ready to take care of those opportunities. If you're not ready for those opportunities, even if they present themselves and they knock on your door, you won't be able to execute on them. What do you think help you be ready for those situations?
Okay. I honestly, I was not ready for the situation.
Okay.
That's the thing. So, for example, when I first started stand-up paddling, my mom forced me, and I really say forced because I was kicking and screaming. I was 12 years old to go down to this race. And it was in my backyard, pretty much the local beach I'd always go to. And I did not want to do it. But I was kind of forced into this situation by my mom. And then other things that happened in the course of my career, like in the very beginning, like joining a team that I was not comfortable with, but I just did it. I think just seeing things as an opportunity, even if you don't feel ready, because I don't think we're ready for a lot of things in life. I think you just have to do it. And if it goes bad, it goes bad. But if you don't do it, you never know. And I think that's too, like, another thing I'm learning as I'm also being a coach. It's like, I see through my students' eyes, like, opportunities they share that they could be doing, and they're very hesitant because it's super out of their comfort zone. I just say, you don't know what's going to happen if you don't try. Just keep your eyes open, keep your mind open, think differently about the possibilities that can happen. And I think if you have a growth mindset and you're not afraid of failure, even if it happens, that's a way you be ready for things, even if you're not physically ready for things.
So this is obviously a podcast that heavily dips into sports, but for those of you who are not involved in one, or maybe are not currently involved in one thing that sports do share, doesn't matter which one you play, is that you can take values from whatever you did as an athlete into your life, right? Working environment, as a student, whatever it is. What do you think are the main 2 or 3 values that you have learned directly from your sport that you're applying into your life right now?
So I would say vision, 100%. When you set a vision, what you see is your biggest accomplishment for whatever aspect in your life. For me, my vision is to be at the top of my graduating class. Okay. That has nothing to do with the sport, but it's a huge goal I have. It's the vision I have for myself. That's something I learned from my sport. And it also what comes with vision, right? Setting that vision is the goal setting aspect of that too. So setting goals based around that vision. I think those are 2 huge things that I've taken. One other thing that I learned from being in a sport is staying in the present moment, because when I'm competing, or when you're playing soccer, or you're in whatever sport you're in, you have to be focusing at the task at hand. If you start thinking about what you're having for dinner tonight, hello, like, that's not going to go well. So I think that is another huge fundamental I learned, was just staying present in the moment with whatever you're doing.
Yeah, as a player, as soon as I would get to the field, it didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter if I had homework, if I was having a rough day, if I was having problems outside of the field, whatever it was. As soon as I touched that field, I felt like this was my home, my place, my expertise. I can definitely see that for any athlete.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about the fundamentals. We obviously have the 7 fundamentals as one of our main pillars when it comes to the program. Will you give us a little bit of an overview of them?
Yeah. So I would say, honestly, I love how the program is set up. And I think for me, the way I always start and how it's really set, the program is set up, is with vision. So we first talk about, vision, and that's, I think, the really most important fundamental that I cover, because it sets the tone and the pace for the rest of the meetings. So, for me, I think just even with my student now, like, once we set her vision up, we are able to then move on to other fundamentals that are important. So, right. So vision first, I think that's fundamentally, for me at least, was the most important. And then you go into broadening your comfort zone and realizing situations around you can help you in other ways. Okay, that's our second one. Open your eyes, open your mind, right? If you open up your mind to what's happening around you, other opportunities are going to come into play that maybe you didn't see were important or realize were important, because now you have a vision, and that has exemplified, what it is that you want in life and why it matters. And then self-talk is another huge fundamental we go into. Self-talk is a lot of the times an unconscious pattern or routine we have, and we don't realize how impactful that is until you become aware about it. And then, our fourth fundamental, broadening the comfort zones. I think that's another huge one because, we already touched on this. When you start to pull yourself out of your comfort zone, you see growth. It's where you see your biggest, growth patterns in life. I think another important fundamental, I believe it's 6, is learning to be a leader, and how being a leader means different things for everyone. And I think that's really an important concept to learn, especially if you're in a sport, in a team setting. And again, it doesn't just have to be related to sports. It can be related to any aspect of life. You have to be a leader in school, in a job, whatever it is, in a family setting. It's just learning key characteristics of being a leader in different aspects and how that's important. And then our 7th fundamental just touches, on teamwork and the importance of that. And again, that ties into other aspects of life. So what I love too about our program is everything is so closely intertwined, and it's all beneficial in other ways. All the fundamentals are touching on benefits that teach you greater aspects of things in life. So yeah, that's a good question, because I think our fundamentals are uniquely beneficial for different things in life, right? So sports, jobs, students, whatever it is.
And of course, they are interlinked, right, between each other.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the vision one, what's your favorite one?
The self-talk. Our self-talk fundamental. Yeah, that for me too, personally, I think it's my favorite because I had a lot of self-talk problems,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't really realize that until I went into depth about it. And there's also a segment of that fundamental of forcing you to go back into your past and identifying why is it that you have negative self-talk around this aspect of your sport or life. And it's based on past things that have happened that we still latch onto. And a lot of the times it's unconscious. So yeah, I think self-talk has to be my second favorite.
Awesome. We've mentioned this in past episodes. Our title for our coaches, it's head coach, as in a head coach for football, but because of the head part of it. So what does it mean to be a head coach of AST? What do you do?
I think for me, being a head coach, I like to say mental coach. I don't know, whatever it is. I think it's just allowing yourself to be a teacher with things that are happening, not only on a conscious level, but subconscious, and giving your students tools for not just your sport, but life. I think that's what I love most about what I do, is that of course the focus is on the sport, but it affects you in your grand scheme of life, because you're learning tools that help you for everything. And so, yeah, being a head coach to me is just teaching your student fundamentals of controlling your mind, right? And not letting it control you. And that is beneficial in all aspects of life.
We've discussed this already, but how crucial is the mental side of things when you combine it with the physical side of things?
I would say when it comes down to comparing an amazing athlete to a good athlete, it's the mental game. There's a point you reach, I believe, in any sport where you are training equally as physically hard as your competitors, right? And this can be in any division of a sport.
Mm-hmm.
It can be in the intermediate level. You're training at an equal physical compatibility to your competitors, whatever it is. When it comes down to who's winning, who stays in the game longer, it comes down to how you're processing things on the mental level. And what separates, again, great athletes from good is your mental game. I think it's one of the most, I think it's becoming more valued, but it's one of the most undervalued and not talked about subjects of sports. That is the biggest game changer, in my opinion. I think it's 99% mental in a lot of situations.
Right there, game changer. You said it best, right? There it comes to a point where talent is not in question. When you're talking about professional athletes, the talent is there. They have been blessed. I mean, you go back to their junior high days, high school days, they were the best of the best. Same in college. But now when they're competing against other people who were just as good as them, those little edges. I mean, on my own podcast, not this one, and another one, I was talking with a physical doctor, and he was talking about elasticity. Right here, we're talking about the mental side of things. Any single edge can make the difference, and it might not be a huge one, right? It might not be, hey, I got there 20 minutes before the other person. But if that gives you the couple more seconds that you needed to win against the second place, that's what professional athletes are all about, right?
Right. It's the small things and consistency. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's why I'm a coach, and that's why I do what I do, is because I believe that, right?
Exactly. So if there's any young girls, blah, 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 blah. So for any young girls out there or young guys out there looking at this interview and wondering what made you great, or maybe if you were talking to yourself, Shae from 15 years ago, what would you tell her?
I would say, if I was telling myself when I was 15 years old and I had just set that vision to become the number one female stand-up paddler in the world, and I set it by a certain year, I would say, don't give up when you reach the hard things, because I think it's really easy to get discouraged. And I'm not going to lie, I did completely give up in some races because it was just, I wasn't going to win, and I allowed myself to give up because it got hard. And I did that one time in a race, and I never ever did it again, because honestly, those failure moments or times where we don't win or we didn't perform our best, is we learn and we grow from them. That's how you have to see it. So not giving up when you get pushed down, looking at those moments as moments of growth. That's the advice I would give my younger self.
I mean, obviously it's a great advice, but that's a perfect example, right? I don't know how many races you did. I don't know how many times you got on that board, but that one time that you gave up, that's the one that you remember, right? Because the rest of them, you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. And that's the one that you remember. And that's the one that led to, hey, I'm never quitting again. I'm never going to do this again.
Like, that moment is ingrained in my brain. Like, that feeling of giving up on myself, like, it was the worst feeling I've ever experienced, because I gave up. I fell like 20 times in this race, and I got off my board and I quit the race. And after experiencing that, I was like, I don't care if I come in last, I'm finishing the race. That's what that taught me.
Right. If you would like our viewers to leave with one message before we finish the interview, what would that be?
I'd say with one message, there's so many, but it's hard to choose just one, but never stop trying new things, and don't be afraid to do something just because it's scary. I think that's just overall good advice, because there's so many things in life. We get one life. We get one shot. I mean, I don't know what you believe, but we get this one life, okay? Right. And if you don't do something just because it scares you, which is valid, it's scary. Life is so scary sometimes. But if you miss opportunities in life just because of that, you're going to miss out. Just do it, even though it's scary. And 10 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10, let's give one little thing out of there, it's going to be amazing, because you did it and you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I feel like that's a good thing to leave with. I hope at least. That's something
No,
that changed my life. That mindset.
and I mean, yeah, great message. Actually, one of my biggest mentors in life, he made me realize this. So going off of your point, he asked me, "Hey, what happens to you when you're nervous?" Right? And okay, hey, I start shaking, or my stomach hurts, or I'm sweaty, shaky hands, whatever. It
Yeah.
varies for different people. And then he asked me, "Okay, what are the symptoms of excitement?" And you were like, "Exactly the same ones, right?"
Yes.
So my butterflies in the stomach, I'm feeling anxious. I want to go ahead and do that, and he was right. It's like, hey, when you are nervous, it's just excitement in disguise. You want
Mm-hmm.
to go ahead and do that. You want to go execute and accomplish that little goal of yours, even though it might be scary in a way. You're ready for it, and you want to do that. Your body is asking you to do that.
I love that. That is totally reframing the conversation in your head too. Like, I
Mhm.
love that. True.
Hey, the third fundamental right there, right?
Right.
Well,
Awesome.
yeah, well, with that being said, once again, guys, I would love you to go check out the website. There's way more about Shae over there. I love this interview, by the way. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Eddie. I enjoyed it too. This is awesome.
Yeah, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Like the video if you enjoyed our conversation just as much as I did. And once again, I'm your host, Eddie Sicilia. Shae Foudy was our special guest today. And remember, it's all mental.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.